Now we will shift our focus to something a bit closer to home, literally. In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to secure your home network. Think about it. Your home network is the gateway to all your personal devices, computers, smartphones, smart TVs, even your IoT devices like that fancy smart thermostat or the doorbell camera. If your home network is vulnerable, everything connected to it could be at risk. The good news is that securing your home network doesn't require a degree in computer science. With just a few simple steps, you can lock down your Wi-Fi, protect your data, and keep cybercriminals out. Let's dive into the best practices for securing your home network so you can enjoy peace of mind in the digital world. Before we get into the how, let's quickly touch on the why. Why should you care about securing your home network? Well, your home network is the central hub for all your internet activity. Whether you're checking your bank account, streaming Netflix, or controlling your smart home devices, everything runs through your network. If a hacker gains access to your network, they can potentially intercept sensitive information, hijack your devices, or even use your network to launch attacks on others. And let's be real, cybercriminals love to target home networks because they know many people haven't taken the necessary steps to secure them. But not you. By the end of this lesson, you'll know exactly how to lock things down. So, how do we go about securing our home networks? Let's break it down into practical, easy to follow steps that anyone can do, regardless of technical expertise. The first thing you should do, if you haven't already, is change the default login credentials on your router. When you set up a new router, it comes with default admin credentials like admin/admin or admin/password, and guess what? Hackers know these too. If you don't change them, it's like leaving your front door wide open with a welcome sign on it. Here's what you do. Log into your router's admin page by typing its IP address into your web browser. This is usually something like 192.168.1.1 or 192.168.0.1, but check your router's manual to be sure. Change the admin username and password to something more secure. Use a strong password that includes a mix of letters, numbers, and symbols. If possible, avoid using easily guessed names like home admin or router user. This one simple step adds a layer of protection that prevents unauthorized users from messing with your network settings. Next up, change your Wi-Fi network name, also known as the SSID Service Set Identifier. By default, your SSID is often something like Linksys 123 or Netgear 456, which can give away the brand of your router, and thus, what vulnerabilities it might have. By changing your SSID, you make it harder for attackers to identify the type of router you're using. Plus, it gives you a chance to name your network something more creative than Wi-Fi, maybe something like the Force or FBI surveillance van. Just kidding, kind of. When you change your SSID, make sure not to use any personal information like your name or address, because this can give hackers additional clues about your identity. Now, let's talk about Wi-Fi encryption. Your Wi-Fi network should be encrypted to prevent unauthorized users from intercepting data or piggybacking on your connection. Most modern routers offer different encryption standards, and WPA3 is the most secure option available today. If your router supports WPA3, use it. If not, WPA2 is still a solid choice. Whatever you do, avoid using WP. It's outdated and very easy for hackers to crack. To enable WPA3 or WPA2, go to your router's settings and look for the section labeled Wireless or Wi-Fi. Find the security or encryption option and select WPA3 or WPA2 if WPA3 isn't available. Make sure your Wi-Fi password is strong, ideally with a combination of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters. Many routers come with a feature called Remote Management, which allows you to access your router's settings from anywhere in the world. While this might sound convenient, it's a major security risk. If someone guesses or cracks your login credentials, they can take control of your router remotely. To be safe, disable Remote Management unless you absolutely need it. In your router settings, look for the option labeled Remote Management or Remote Access and make sure it's turned off. If you do need remote access, consider enabling it only when necessary and using a VPN, more on that later, to secure the connection. Just like your phone or computer, your router's software, called firmware, needs to be updated from time to time. Manufacturers release firmware updates to patch security vulnerabilities and improve performance. Check your router's settings for a firmware update option. If there's a newer version available, install it. Some routers can be set to update firmware automatically, which is the best option if you want to ensure you're always running the latest and most secure version. Bonus tip: if your router is more than 5 years old and doesn't support the latest security features like WPA3, it might be time to consider an upgrade. Older routers are often less secure and slower to boot. If you frequently have guests over, whether friends, family, or that one neighbor who's always just checking their email, you should consider setting up a guest network. A guest network is a separate Wi Fi network specifically for visitors, so they don't have access to your main network and the devices connected to it. In your router settings, look for a guest network option and enable it. Set a separate password for the guest network and limit the number of devices that can connect. Consider enabling a feature called client isolation, which prevents devices on the guest network from communicating with each other. This adds an extra layer of security in case someone brings a device that's infected with malware. Having a guest network is like having a guest bedroom. It's a space that's accessible, but separated from your main living area. If you want to take your home network security to the next level, consider using a VPN, virtual private network. A VPN encrypts your internet traffic and masks your IP address, making it much harder for cybercriminals to track your online activities or target your network. You can either set up a VPN on your individual devices or configure it directly on your router. If your router supports VPNs, setting it up at the router level will secure all the devices connected to your network. A VPN is like a secret tunnel for your internet traffic, keeping your data safe from prying eyes. Finally, let's talk about some router features that are often turned on by default but aren't always necessary. UPnP, Universal Plug and Play, and WPS, Wi-Fi Protected Setup, are two features that can make your network more vulnerable if not properly managed. UPnP allows devices like printers and gaming consoles to discover and communicate with your router easily, but it can also allow malicious software to exploit your network. Unless you're using specific devices that rely on UPnP, it's best to disable it. WPS was designed to make connecting devices to your Wi-Fi easier by using a PIN or a physical button. However, the PIN feature can be exploited by hackers. If you're not using WPS, disable it in your router settings. These features are like leaving extra keys under the mat, convenient, but not always safe. To sum it up, securing your home network is essential in today's connected world, but it doesn't have to be complicated. By following the steps we've covered, changing default settings, enabling encryption, keeping your router updated, and using features like guest networks and VPNs, you can drastically reduce your risk of cyber attacks. Remember, your home network is the foundation of your digital life. Taking just a few minutes to lock it down will save you from potential headaches, data breaches, and even financial loss in the long run.